Dos.
Chapter 29. We'll start again. Another 10 days passed before the last cold front moved in, although the temperatures dropped way down a couple of nights. Our shelter stayed warm and dry because of the improvements we made and the hot rocks we slept on. In spite of our warmer home, Kid developed a sniffle that wouldn't go away. After 3 days, he began coughing during the night and having headaches. I gave him the Black Willow aspirin and kept a supply of hot pine needle tea ready whenever he wanted it. If this Black Willow tea and pine needle tea doesn't work, I'll get you some yellow root. That's even better. And I'll get some pine sap for you to chew on. That'll help your throat. Kid nodded. Okay. On the fourth night, we lay in the shelter as the rain drizzled from the icy sky. The wind tossed the treetops over our heads and hickory nuts fell against the shelter wall. Kit coughed more than usual, and an uneasy feeling came over me. The rain had not let up for 2 days, and we had spent most of the time holed up in our shelter. Not even yellow root tea helped, and the forest was too soaked to get dry wood for a fire without whittling each piece of firewood to the core. Put them in. It'll dry tomorrow, I said. I'll get a fire going and make more tea. He didn't answer me. This ought to be the last of the cold weather. I could tell by the way the trees are changing. I looked towards Kid's face in the darkness, but I couldn't see anything. I reminded him of all the things we would do when spring arrived. I talked to the ceiling throughout the night, keeping Kit company while his coughing kept him awake. At daybreak, he crawled out into the rain and began puking. I went after him and watched helplessly as he clutched his stomach and drew his knees up. The rain was soaking us, and my mind spun trying to remember all the medicines Pap had taught me about, but in the end, I couldn't think of anything that we hadn't tried. I don't know what to do, Kit, I cried. My medicine won't work on what you have. He didn't answer me. This yellow root's the best thing I know about. Sometimes you can eat red clay, and that helps. I can go find some of that. I don't know. What should I do, Kit? Kit rolled over onto his back and lay there with his eyes closed and the rain falling on his face. I watched his stomach rise and fall to his breathing. I'm cold, he said. It was the first time I'd ever heard him complain. I ran to the fire pit. I grabbed the knife. I picked up a piece of firewood. I began to whittle it as fast as I could. It wasn't long before Kit called me. I walked over to him with the wood in one hand and the knife in the other. Don't worry about me, Moon. I'll be okay. I don't know how to make any more medicine, I cried. It's okay, he muttered. He tried to get up, but then he fell back and coughed at the sky. I'm going to go get some help. My pap said to leave him alone, and I never should have done that. I dropped the firewood, and I began to run downhill to the creek. I hadn't gone far when I turned, and I ran back. I don't know where to go, Kit. I don't know how to find a doctor. It might take too long. Kit tried to say something, but started coughing again. I'm not leaving you, Kit. I dove into the shelter and grabbed the blankets. I rolled Kit onto one, and I placed the other two over him. I tied the two corners of the ends of a log. I tied two corners to the end of a log about as big as my leg. By standing behind the log, I was able to walk with it against my waist and sled Kit behind me. The wind came cold up the creek bed and thrashed the treetops. I plodded my way through the blowing rain, my head spinning with fear that my first real friend in the world was about to die. I don't want you to die, Kit, I said back to him. I'll be okay, he mumbled. Don't talk, I said. You gotta sleep. I'm gonna find a road and get some help. The air was so icy and damp it seemed to lick my bones. My mind was blank, and I placed one foot in front of the other. I hadn't gone far before my legs were weary and my waist felt bruised and raw. Where the log pressed into it, I collapsed my knees and I began to cry. Kit was silent beside me, and I didn't turn to look at him. I don't care about Alaska, Kit. I'm not going without you. I'm not going at all. Pap said there's more people like him up there, but I don't want to be like those people. I want to be myself, Kit. I staggered to my feet again and I heaved against the sled. I don't want to be anywhere by myself anymore. I've been dragging Kit for almost 2 hours when we came to a swamp where a beaver dam had backed up the creek. I leaned into a log and started uphill to the ridge above. With all the tree roots and fallen timber, I felt like crying out with frustration every few feet. At the top of the ridge, I dropped the log. I fell to my knees and I rested. Kit, I said. He mumbled something I didn't understand, but it was enough to get me to my feet again. I pulled the log up to my waist. I looked across the top of the ridge. At first, I didn't notice the gap in the trees, but after I started pulling, I realized that we were on an overgrown trail of some sort. Then I saw that the trail was raised on a bed of gravel, and it reminded me of an old logging railroad that Papa told me about. We had found a tram road. I figured the tram road would take us out of the forest eventually, and we would certainly be easier. It'd be certainly easier than the creek bottom. I began pulling again. "We're gonna make it, Kit. We're gonna make it," I said. We came to the blacktop that afternoon. I stood at the edge of it for a while before I knew it was there. I was so tired that everything was blurry. I let the log drop from my waist and I started across the highway. After a moment, I looked up and down the empty 2-lane road. The sounds of the forest returned to my ears and I felt a strong thirst in my mouth. I turned around slowly and knelt beside Kit. I put my hand gently on the top of the blankets that covered him. Kit. He moved slightly and mumbled. I pulled the blankets to see his face. It was sickly pale. He kept his eyes closed. He clutched his stomach. "I found a road, Kit." I said, "We just gotta wait." He nodded without opening his eyes. "A car's gonna be along soon. I'll get him to take you to get medicine. I'm not gonna go to Alaska. I don't know what I'll do, but I won't live up there without any friends. I'll wait for you to get better and then let you decide where you want to go." I heard a noise and looked up. A white car was coming our way. I stood and ran to the middle of the road. I waved my arms back and forth until I was sure the driver saw me. And then I ran back and stood over Kit. "I'll stay out here until you're better and you can come find me. You just follow this tram road and I'll be watching for you. If you get somewhere they won't let you out of, I'll come break you out. I'll whip up on everybody there. You got it, Kit?" The car began to slow as it approached us. I took a few steps toward the forest. "I'll get you out of anywhere, Kit. You hear?" The car crossed the bridge and pulled onto the roadside, and the passenger window rolled down. An old woman peered out. Are you okay, child?" I pointed at Kit. She looked down at him and gasped. She turned and said something to the driver. A man stepped out from the other side. What's happened here, son?" I turned and ran for the trees.